Gundam Age is perhaps one of the most nuanced and decisive entries in the Gundam franchise. From the classic Bandai case of screwing over an anime for profit, I have to say, rewatching the anime a couple weeks back wasn't all that bad. I just got bored and said, you know what, why not just rewatch Age just for the heck of it, because I had nothing better to do other than rewatching Seed Freedom 10 more times for another potential video coming out soon. Age is one of those series that I still very much enjoy, but of course, just like another Gundam show that I've been covering on my channel, there's definitely a lot of missed potential. Age really had a promising start, but it slowly falls into this abyss and painfully becomes a shit show. And by shit show, I'm definitely referring to the infamous Kyo arc. Okay, now don't get me wrong, I actually don't hate Kyo, but the kid really is just the best example of writers screwing over their protagonists. No hate to Kira, but if you guys think what Fukuda did by completely destroying his reputation and character in Seed Destiny was bad, Kyo by far, in my opinion, is just as bad, or if not even worse. The third arc actually had a lot of great ideas, and I'm gonna say it right now, but it went hard, bro. Kyo actually had a good first impression in his first episode, introducing him as the next shonen lead of the anime. The writers actually did a good job of making Kyo stand out from the two previous leads of Age. Unlike Asumu and Flit, Kyo didn't join the war out of his own choice. Rather, very similar to a lot of past Gundam protagonists, the youngster is instead drawn towards a battle he never had a part in the first place. But at the same time, there's this one defining trait of his character that made him very different from, the past protagonists. So initially, Kyo had a strong sense of justice, but one major flaw of his was that he treated the war as a simple game because of his upbringing from his genocidal grandpa. Kyo lacks a self-awareness of battle, and as such basically treats his enemies just like a Call of Duty first-person shooter. Honestly, this trait is not seen in a lot of past Gundam protagonists as a whole, since, well, by the time we see them in battle, most of them already taking war and battle pretty seriously. The first episode of Kyo's journey was already laid out for him. It was very clear that the young child eventually had to learn the severity of war itself, and that it isn't all just fun and games. And of course, I have to praise the writers for actually developing the arc by having him grow and realizing the truth of the conflict between the Vegan and the Earth Federation, by opening his eyes to the fact that not all of his enemies are monsters, which is what Kyo initially believed due to the learnings of his grandfather. So, unlike his father and grandfather, Kyo had the luxury of actually experiencing firsthand what life was really like for the Vegan, which is actually kind of well done in my opinion. Kyo slowly learns around him that the very people he's been fighting and killing aren't all monsters, but rather just people with a desire for a Long of Eden, a peaceful sanctuary, free from the hardships of the living conditions on Mars. But really, that's almost all I can really say the writers did well on. I actually did rewrite this portion of the script after going back to rewatch the episodes where Kyo was on Second Moon, just chilling on the Vegan homeworld. So at first, I was like, okay, I'm with it. I see what the writers are doing. But then I was like, I started seeing the flaws of how the execution was done. So you see, instead of having Ezelcan simply just tell Kyo about how rough the Vegans have it with the Mars ray disease and all that through exposition, the writers should have just simply shown us, instead of having the main antagonist just tell us right there how hard the citizens have it. What I'm trying to say is that they should have just had Kyo interact more with the citizens and seeing for himself the trials the Vegan endure on a daily span of their lives. Okay, I know what you guys are going to say right now, right? Yes, I know, to be fair, Kyo did have a run-in with a few citizens, namely Dean and his sister, which changed Kyo's outlook on the whole war and made him more sympathetic towards the Vegan as a whole. In my honest opinion, it just wasn't enough. Ezelcan mentioned that Vegan citizens slowly lost their will to love and even live due to the looming incurable threat of the Mars ray disease. But the citizens still cling onwards to hope and continue to wish for the best. Lou and Dean are the perfect example of Ezelcan's exposition. The twins still wish for a day when they can finally set foot upon the soil of the distant land known as Earth, and eventually witness the endless blue sky they have desperately wished for. But the thing is, I just needed to see more of it. What I mean by seeing more is like, what about the lives of the other civilians? Are they also suffering the same fate? We're led to believe that all Vegan want to set foot into Earth to escape their tragic upbringing. But what else would it change? What I mean is, how else would migrating towards Earth change the Vegan experience besides not having the Mars race disease? Would poverty and hunger still exist? Like, everyone else besides the twins that Kyo comes across just seems normal without a care or struggle. It's just a minor nitpick, but I would have loved it if just the writers just spent another episode just showcasing more of the Vegan suffering. Like, for example, remember that kid that stole Kyo's bag? You know, that could have been further expanded upon. Like, the writers could have used them to showcase potential hardship and flaws of the Vegan system that resorted the young boy to steal. Like, what I mean is, I just want to see more of the challenges, more of the different viewpoints from different citizens in the Vegan. Anyways, it was just a minor nitpick, but it would have been great if the writers just fully expanded more on the concepts. It kind of reminded me of the space arc in Gundam X, where it only lasted for like, what, I think 2 episodes, so it felt definitely a little rushed, but you know, just for what it was okay, I guess. Getting to the main problem, what have I told you? Everything I just mentioned feels like a cop-out. It feels very contrived in a way of the writers to just have Kyo change his outlook by being this plot device to fully humanize the Vegan enemies by having him interact with them. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? Like I said, I actually do like the episodes with the twins and Kyo, but I just can't accept the fact that Kyo himself was only allowed this luxury of being shown the Vegan lifestyle because he just simply looked like Zelkan's deceased son. That's why I'm very mixed on how the situation played out. What if Kyo didn't look like Zelkan's deceased son? Would he still be granted this access to move around? Or would he be treated differently? That's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I know that it was hinted, or actually no, my bad, it was confirmed that Zelkan wanted to give Earth a chance, and he wanted them to like kind of, you know, see the errors of their ways in a way. But I don't know, it just felt really weird how the situation played out. And like I said, just having Kyo literally being this plot device because he looked like the main antagonist's son and granted freedom to do whatever he wants to do, it's just weird. You know, speaking of the main antagonist, Zelkan, wow, he seems like an interesting foil to Kyo. You know, I sure hope the show doesn't just forget about him or kill him off. Oh. Now, of course, this is the main string of problems I have with the writers screwing over Kyo in the last arc. And that is, there's simply no rival to challenge Kyo's beliefs. Zelkan could have been the one and only foil to Kyo's belief. Zelkan himself is basically a simplified version of Space Hitler, playing God at trying his hand for a new world order, where only the select strong and worthy can survive, while the weak and unneeded are weeded out of society. As twisted as it may seem, this belief directly contrasts Kyo's, who at this point has a newfound desire to not only protect the Vegan homeworld and its citizens, but also establish a peaceful understanding and coexistence between them and Earth. Kyo's way of doing things, however, is seen as this peaceful alternative solution that requires no sacrifices, while Zelkan truly believes in the worst of humanity and is willing to go to the extra mile and sack off life just for his ambitions. So of course, there's a very clear distinction between the two polar opposite characters. I was actually very well invested in what the writers could have done, but ultimately, by dropping Zelkan and having him be written out and just literally dying off screen just for Zehart's development, which is a big middle finger to almost everyone who watched the show at that time. Okay, now I'm someone who doesn't really like comparing other Gundam shows to each other, but for the sake of this video, I actually had to give some of my favorite examples of why a rival character is needed in the Gundam story. Let's look at Char and Amuro for example. More specifically, just focusing on the rivalry in the 1 Year War. And as the story goes on, both pilots push one another beyond their limits. In the case of Amuro, to win means to survive, and to survive, it means you get another shot to live in order to see another day. And in order to survive the Hellfest known as the 1 Year War, eventually he's going to have to beat his biggest challenge yet, that being the famous Red Comet himself, if Amuro even wants to have a chance of survival and making it out of the war. Even in Zeta Gundam, Shirako himself is a twisted foil to Camille and Quattro's beliefs of new typism. Quattro believes in a world where eventually people can evolve into new types and understand each other through a deeper level of understanding. Of course, this being in the form of Camille, who literally represents the best ideals of Quattro's beliefs. Camille, who uses powers for this exact purpose, to build connections. Meanwhile, Shirako himself is the complete opposite. Instead of using his powers for the good of everyone around him to build connections, the asshat would rather use those same powers to manipulate everyone around him just for his own egotistical goals. Eventually, we as the viewers can't see the loopholes in Quattro's beliefs, and not every new type can be understanding as Camille, and that some will use their gifts for their own personal gain instead of the greater good for everyone around them. Then you get to Kyo's beliefs, and without Ezelkamp, there's not remotely anyone in the Vegan side that Kyo has any connections to that can truly serve as opposition to his beliefs. And that's why having a rival is so important, because it brings us to two possibilities of both sides, the enemy and the protagonist side. By extension, if Kyo doesn't have anyone to connect towards the enemy, there's no sense of challenges. And I guess what you can say that the war itself can be seen as what challenges Kyo to act the way he does. But then again, it's not really that special because I can say that about any other Gundam protagonist with their challenges to war. The actual closest thing we get to anyone remotely standing in the way of Kyo's pacifistic views is his grandpa Flit. But the thing is, I just don't think it works that well in my honest opinion. The show presents itself like Flit is the biggest opposition to Kyo's beliefs. Both of them are the polar opposites of each other. Flit, who's at this point is a genocidal maniac who can't see that the other side isn't all that bad, they're still humans at the end of the day. And Kyo, who's of course this young idealistic protagonist who wants change, who wants to believe in the best of people. And Flit, being Kyo's grandpa, actually hinders the potential of seeing the two clash. Flit simply has too many connections to Kyo, but at no point do their philosophies ever clash other than just few words exchanged towards one another. And because of their connection, there's simply no stakes involved. We the viewers know deep down the two love each other, and in turn, there is no duality that causes inner turmoil. Flit and Kyo's clash of ideas could have worked, with Flit of course representing the ideals of a hardened vet who has seen everything and wants results. Those same results being that the Vegan race has to be killed, while Kyo is a youth. He is idealistic in nature and he often wants to change the world for the better. Kyo is patient enough to wait for change, while Flit is tired of waiting and he wants results now. It's of course the classic case of young versus old, ideals versus reality. There is, however, another Gundam show that excels at having a duality between two characters, that being Shin and Atheron's relationship in Seed Destiny. Yes, they do fight for the same cause on the same side initially. The two's beliefs are in direct contrast with the other. For example, Atheron believes in Orb's ideals, meanwhile, Shin himself is disappointed in Orb's ideals. Atheron simply has too many connections in Orb to truly understand Shin's views. Meanwhile, Shin himself has too many connections in Zeph that make it hard for him to look back on Orb and understand Atheron's views. Atheron is someone who is immobilized by his past and fixated on his own mistakes, and as such moves backwards because he's too focused on not repeating the past. Meanwhile, Shin himself is a character that always moves forward without giving much thought of reflecting upon his own mistakes. There's a duality of the two that challenges the other, but at the same time, they're technically still in the same position. They're both warriors trapped in the past, but they just fight differently. Both are self-righteous, and every time we see them on screen on the Minerva, there's always this clash that makes viewers see both sides of their actions. The best example of this is when Shin freed those captive slaves of the Earth Alliance. In his own point of view, those people suffering are in the same vein he once experienced as a child. And in doing so, his heroic deeds showcase his righteous heart to look out for others, to not repeat those very same experiences he once went through. Meanwhile, Arthur disagrees with Shin's actions because war isn't about being a hero and saving lives. No, it's about getting the mission done. So both can be seen as right in their own situation, depending on how you look at it. That's why this duality actually works, because we know that both have been affected by the past, and their past causes a reaction for them to start doing things in the present. And that's why I genuinely enjoy this duality. Kyo and his grandpa, however, don't have the same level of depth. Let's get to the mobile suit. Age FX. The suit itself is literally a crutch. The Gundam design actually is literally made just for Kyo, so he won't have to kill anymore. Of course, similar to the Freedom, the same issues can be said that these two mobile suits itself questions the very essence of sacrifices of war. And I have to say right now, right, there is no such thing as war without bloodshed. But one thing that I can potentially say is that Freedom in Seed has an edge over the FX in terms of storytelling. Back in Seed, the show presents itself in a way that, yes, Kira could have killed with the Freedom's weapons, but because of how easy it is just to kill everyone on the spot, Kira himself would rather make the harder choice that he believed, which is to just try to aim at the joints of the mobile suits to not kill them. Like I said, going back on Age, the show, of course, does another problem with show don't tell. Back in Seed, the show didn't need to tell us that Kira used the Freedom to not kill. They showed us that yes, the suit has the capabilities to actually just wipe out the whole army right there, but it is ultimately Kira's choice to make if he wants to kill them or not. Meanwhile, upon the first side of the FX, Kyo directly mentions if he can use it to not kill his enemies. He was told that of course it would take some time to master, but once again we never got to see the effort being made of him trying to master the FX. And of course another thing is that, yeah, I know that, well, the last 10 episodes of Age really had very bad pacing, but the thing is, having the show just skip over a 1 month time skip and just all of a sudden be like, yo, the time skip happened, Kyo just mastered the FX, he's good at it now, he can be this pacifist on the battlefield. I would have liked at least one episode of him just trying to master the FX, and the worst part of it all is Kyo trying to force his ideals into other people. Once again, in war, you can't do that, you can't save everyone, and not everyone is going to understand your views and ideals. I know that the show was trying to tell us, look, if everyone were to simply just understand each other, that would be great, but we humans don't work like that. Can't force peace and our ideals into others and expect them to be okay with it. I mean, if that was the case, then there would be no conflict. Now, not only does Kyo not get challenged for his beliefs, but there's no point where his worldview gets twisted upside down. He keeps on persisting that, you know, they talk it out instead of fighting. But what I have to say is that if our enemies don't want to understand us, then we really have no choice but to fight. But not everyone can be tamed with a peaceful talk. Anything that Gundam has shown us is that sometimes people have to be put down for a bigger cause, whatever it may be. There's not a moment where he simply has to look and understand that as righteous as his actions are, not everyone deserves to be saved or can be saved. In conclusion, I like Age a lot. I know there's a lot of flaws with the story, but I just surprisingly don't hate it at all. At this point, Age is just another one of my guilty pleasures, similar to another series I've covered quite a lot. Both have their flaws, but I still like the characters and, you know, the plot and everything about it. In Kyo's case, I truly can't put all the blame into his character, when it seems to be a bad case of just bad writing from executives and then probably just nefarious acts of Bandai at work.